Alrighty, we're back, baby. We're back. The Artist Way. I didn't forget about you. It's been, I don't even know how long, months. It's been months. But I didn't forget about the book. I didn't forget about the YouTube series. We're just living life, you know? I'm not, it wasn't over. It wasn't continuing in the present moment. But now we're here. So I'm happy to be back. Week 8, recovering a sense of strength. I took some notes. This is kind of a long chapter, so I've literally reread it like 2 or 3 times because I've wanted to make this video, and then time went by and I didn't remember what the chapter was about. So I've actually kind of digested it from a couple different angles. But yeah, if this is your first time joining The Artist Way, A Spiritual Path to Higher Creativity, internationally best-selling author Julia Cameron. It's got, just look it up. There's so many people who have said great things about it. I've heard this book multiple times. My therapist told me to read it like 2 years ago, 3 years ago, and thank you. Shout out to, you know who you are. Probably not watching this. I kind of would hope she's not watching this, but yeah. So basically, it's a course book to help you redevelop your creativity. Tap into that kind of thing. Get out of your own way is really the biggest thing, and that's kind of what chapter 8 is gonna highlight even more. But yeah, let's just get right into it. What I do here, if this is your new, I'm just gonna read some stuff that she said that I like, kind of spitball things that come off my dome as well as notes I have. But yeah, just trying to digest the book alongside you guys while you're watching these videos, and hopefully one, it helps you right here in the video, but two, hopefully it encourages you to actually get this book, because I don't think we'll touch about on it in this chapter, but the studying, then analyzing, the hearing other people talk about it, XYZ, is not the same as like doing the work for yourself. So definitely get out there, get yourself a copy, and just start journaling. If you don't even want to read the book, just start journaling and watch what happens. But yeah, so recovering a sense of strength, week 8. Right off the bat, the first section is called Survival. I'll read the first sentence just to set the tone. One of the most difficult tasks an artist must face is a primal one: artistic survival. All artists must learn the art of surviving loss. And then she goes on and talks about what artistic loss might look like. She gives examples of, putting out a movie script or a painting or a song, and it being unsuccessful. It's not well received. But I also liked her other example of a pot breaking, where it's like you've created this great thing, but it's just been destroyed, or you missed your opportunity, which is really what resonated with me, because I feel like that's kind of maybe the loss that I have to try and work through, is feeling like there's these different chapters that I've gone through in the last 5 years that I could have kind of capitalized on, as far as resources, places that I lived, the equipment that I had, and how it created a different sound, and those kind of shoulda, woulda, couldas. And that's kind of what you need to survive within your own mind, because I think I'm having a blockage because of that, because it's like, oh, I could have done this, and so maybe what I should do now is what I should have done then, but you are where you are now. You got to pivot and stay where you're at. So yeah, that was like the first kind of point. But yeah, I think I said everything my notes say. I read this a couple times, and the reason I haven't been doing these videos is I read a couple other books that I feel like were kind of meta, like they were the book that would influence this kind of book, and it really opened my mind up to other things, and it felt like reading this book was kind of silly. But I've humbled myself since then. I think I was kind of going through some spiritual bypass and was excited about all this stuff that I was learning. And so I was like, screw Artist Way. I'm way beyond that. I'm a god, da-da-da. And just, learned all this extra stuff. But yeah, I'm humbling myself. I'm learning just from this, getting back into chapter 8. I'm seeing this stuff from a different lens. I'm appreciating the book too, because I see how she's implementing some of the ideologies and the philosophies that I've learned separately in the book. That being, just creativity being a very spiritual experience, which is a theme of this whole book, but But just hearing that kind of rhetoric outside of the book and then coming back, I'm like, they're correlating, they're corroborating. So I understand what she's saying now. But yeah, but one of my notes was, I don't feel like I need this chapter very much, but many people do. But yeah, I definitely need this chapter. I was not humble when I wrote that note. That's for sure. But yeah, so first section is really just about surviving your loss, and I think she goes into more tools that are going to help you with that. But one big thing that she touches on, and I think it's because she did work in academia for a while, worked for universities as like a film teacher and a writing teacher and stuff like that, I think, is just talking about all the different ways that like a teacher or a mentor can kind of tear you down without realizing. And the image that I see is just people come into this world unfiltered. A lot of the things she talks about is about really just recovering your inner child, because I think we come in to this world and we are just abundantly creative, always thinking of new ideas. There's no self-consciousness, and we're just letting it flow, baby. And I think a lot of this is really just trying to get back to that, peel back the layers, and be like, listen, you are just a little baby boy, just doing your thing. And yeah, so that's really like what she's trying to do. And teachers, and when you have those role models that you look up to and you admire, and then they say, you ain't shit, or you need to fix this, whatever, can really tear you down. And then put blockages in there, especially when you're young, you don't even realize what's going on. But yeah, so the one thing I have underlined is when you're talking about intellectuals and people who analyze, critics, if you will, fall in this category, where it's just people who are studying, analyzing, judging. These kind of people, what we're speaking about. It says, skilled and intellectual discourse. Wait, hold up. I need to know what I'm reading. It is my experience as a visiting artist that many academics are themselves artistic beings who are deeply frustrated by their inability to create. Skilled in intellectual discourse, distanced by that intellectual skill from their own creative urgings, they often find the creativity of their charges deeply disturbing. So she uses some word salad in this chapter that I'm like, I don't remember her writing all crazy like this. But point being is, thought is the enemy of flow. Thought is the enemy of flow. And, academia, studying, analysis, judgment, research, whatever word you want to use. I'm big on YouTube University, always learning stuff, whatever. But it's getting in my own way, because it's an opposition of creativity. And I have on this other page, to be blunt, she says, most academics know how to take something apart, but not how to assemble it. And so, yeah, it's like reverse engineering. And sometimes you can learn stuff that you can then implement in a natural way on the front end when you're creating, but it's not the same process, and it'll never fully get you there. Yeah, so that's one note to really, jot that down. But he... Hold on, I'm reading my notes. Give me a minute. But yeah, stifled people will try to stifle you. Be limitless, I wrote down on the side. And yeah, so I think a lot of this is just trying to develop your own self-confidence. And this whole chapter, like I say later on, is the goal of this chapter, I think, is, to encourage yourself so that you have that inner strength. Like, you need strength to come from you and no one else. Having strength come from other people is great, but if you can't foster it and mine it and use it from within yourself, then where are you going to get it? You can't rely on anybody. You need to find that strength again, because I'm all over the place. I got so much notes. Let's just keep going and I'll get there. But point being, children are not self-conscious. They're not the ones who have an ego developed yet. So you're trying to get back to that. So kind of need to have strength so that you can fall back. And now that we're adults, relatively, now that we're not, we're over the age of 6 or 7, we need to then be strong enough to create that space for ourselves. So protect ourselves, our inner child, our creativity, and support it and give it encouragement, which is one of the things she says about teachers, where it's like that's really the job of a teacher, especially in a creative thing. It's like no one's gonna be perfect. Everyone's on a different path. Everyone has a different way that their like creativity and their being manifests. So you as a teacher, your job is to just encourage that, and obviously guide it in the right direction so it's not evil. But as long as you're not hurting their feelings, it probably really wouldn't be evil in its natural state anyway. But yeah, so you're trying to parent yourself really, so that you can allow your inner child and your creativity to run freely. But yeah, thought is the enemy of flow. That is getting in the way. One thing that really stuck with me, and I think I need to write this down and like glue it to my eyeballs. She says, recognize that the entire thrust of intellectualism runs counter to the creative impulse. For an artist to become overly cerebral is to become crippled. Blew my mind. Let me say that again. For an artist to become overly cerebral is to become crippled. If you don't know what cerebral means, I'm using context clues. Cerebral cortex is the front part of your brain. It's where a lot of like, reasoning and logic is formed, and so that's your like, what did they say? Your left brain, your right, no, your right brain, whatever. Your intellectual, your logic, your rational brain, which is something that I take pride in. I've always have as a kid, always wanting to learn new facts and tell them to adults. They're like, oh, this kid's so smart. And I think that that pursuit is in opposition of my pursuit to be creative, because I'm trying to reverse engineer everything, trying to analyze, trying to research, but it's like there's the doing, there's the being, there's the output that I'm also searching for, and so they're fighting for each other, and I realize that I'm going in the wrong direction sometimes. So if you can't tell, I'm excited about my life. And you should be too, for shit's sake. Please do. Please be. But one other word that comes up is having the audacity, not the authentic talent, which often gets you where you want to be. Which I think is that freedom that I'm talking about, to roam free, is just like, there's so many people that I admire that I think they've got it all figured out, and then they don't know how they got it figured out, and they don't think they do either. But it's what I think they have figured out that I'm not recognizing is they just have the audacity. They're just pulling the trigger. They're just gunning for it. They're just like, they just put the shit out, and obviously they work on it, they tweak on it, they care, but it's also like a certain amount of separation, a certain amount of seeing beyond the one thing that you're doing, and that's kind of, all the thoughts, they're coming in too fast. But that's what she says later on in the chapter. It's like you're trying to focus on one little thing at a time. Like, do one little thing at a time. And there's a Japanese concept called Kaizen. They use it in business and stuff, where it's like 1% improvements, like very incremental improvements everywhere. And then boom, the whole system that you had is now just like 20 or 30% more efficient, because you're a little over here, a little over there. And yeah, so you can kind of do that with your goals, and sometimes having those big goals can be crippling, because you're like setting yourself up for failure, and then it's just like a self-fulfilling prophecy, because you're like, I'm here and all I'm doing is staring up here, but I'm avoiding like this step that's like right there. Like, why don't I just do this? Because it's not only is it achievable, but it's right in front of you. So like, just do the next right thing, she says. But let me try and get back on page, literally. Let me read some quotes in here, and I'm sure I'll have more ranting to do. Tyler, the Creator, comes to mind a lot in these. I feel like I skipped. I'm thinking. Give me a moment. Bear with me. Um, yeah, we'll just keep it rolling. Um, the next section was gain disguised as a loss, and back to the survival, which she was, referring to artistic losses as like your art not being well received, not doing as well as you'd like, that kind of thing. Um, and that's really not a loss. So she sets you up to be like, okay, you have these things, right? And then 2 sections later, she's like, forget all that. That ain't even real, which I think I subscribe to that right off the bat. And that's kind of why I was like, this chapter, da da da, is because it's like, I'm trying to internalize that failure does not exist. Failure is a construct that does not exist. And let me explain. Because you have, I'll explain it in artistic terms because that's the video I'm making. But like, say you're gonna film a movie, right? You write this movie, and you need someone to produce it, to put money up front, buy the cameras, or rent the cameras, pay the actors, the set, all that stuff. So you need money for that, whatever. Okay, you can't get someone in there to pay. No one's gonna pay. Okay, pivot. All right, I'll just film it myself. That means camera's gonna be cheaper. You know what I mean? The camera's gonna be cheaper. We're gonna have worse actors, or I'm just gonna use my friends, and because they're willing to like let me critique them more, and we can do it more. And then okay, the camera breaks on day one. All right, we're gonna pivot. So who's got the best iPhone in the room right now? We still have a tripod, whatever. Set them up. Okay, you know what I mean? And then you gotta go and edit it. Oh, it doesn't look that great. Learn how to color correct iPhone footage, whatever. You know what I mean? And point being is, it's like your creativity is coming out. It should be coming out in all directions, and then like it's just fitting where it can, and where it like there's gonna be obstacles facing it. But when that creativity comes out, it needs to just go where it can, and just go to the fullest, and like it's never gonna end. So like there's no failure. It's gonna come out, and then boom, you make this movie, it comes out, and then you don't want to make movies anymore. You just pivot, using Tyler the Creator's word, like you just pivot. So I don't make movies anymore, and now I'm gonna get into painting, or I'm gonna become an accountant or something. Like you just create in a different way. You just live in a different way. So to really cap my point is like, your life is the creative process. Like you are a creative being. You are the creation. You are the creative at the same time. So like, it's never gonna fail. Like you could put songs out forever, and they all do terrible, whatever, based on the numbers. But like the creativity's coming out, and there is no failure, because like I'm on to the next. Like my life is the creation and the creativity. And the bigger scope that you're working in, like the less that these things matter, and then you realize that like the limitations are what allows your creativity to thrive, because that's what creativity is spawned from. It's like a lack. Like creativity is coming out of like a necessity for something, like whether it be expressing your emotions, or it's solving a world issue. Like that's a creative thing. It's like solving problems. So that's what I wrote right here. Is like, these things aren't losses; they're just circumstances, and then potential gains. You just need to pivot, and that's literally what creativity means. Is literally just to like create something out of nothing, to make the most of what you've got. And I think the more you can just pick your head up and like look for opportunity instead of looking at the obstacles. Like when you drive, you know sometimes I think about this, like when I'm driving, I'm looking at all the other cars, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but my car is not going towards the other cars. My car is, hopefully not, my car is going in the empty space. My car is going down the road that's open. So it's like, it's kind of that. I mean, drive safe, but I think that mentality applies, where it's like, I'm going to aim for the open spaces. I'm not going to aim for the obstacles, because I'm not trying to hit the obstacles. I'm trying to hit the open spaces and fill them up. So, and I like that I use the fill them up, because it's about to go on to another section. Based on that, I'm going to skip this one section and then we're going to do that. But the section is filling the form. And she's talking about, like I said, Kaizen, where it's just like, she doesn't mention Kaizen in the book, but neither here nor there. You're filling the form. And she says, what do I mean by filling the form? I mean taking the next small step instead of skipping ahead to a large one for which you may not yet be prepared. To be very specific, in order to sell a screenplay, you must first write one. And then yada yada, you must, write more pages and edit it, and so you just do the steps. So you should know what the form is, and then you need to fill it up. And that the filling of the form needs to just be with those small steps instead of just staring at the form. And she gives a great examples that are pretty funny, where it's like, who can concentrate on a first drawing class when he is obsessed about having to divorce his wife and leave town? Who can turn toe out in modern jazz form when she is busy reading the ads for a new apartment, since she will have to break up with her lover to concentrate on her art? Creative people are dramatic, and we may use negative drama to scare ourselves out of our creativity with this notion of wholesale and often destructive change. Fantasizing about pursuing our art full-time, we fail to pursue it part-time or even at all. Which I was like, boom. One of my problems for sure. Like I said, staring way up here, but that step is right there. Just take the step. Do the small things. And this is what these video series is, the small things. Like, I would like the production quality to be way better in this video. I'm on Photo Booth in my Mac. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't edit these. I literally just bounce them and post it. And I'd like it to be better, but also I'm trying to take the steps of like, okay, I'm going to put videos out and talk to people, get their feedback, whatever, before, let me get that down first. Let me post first. Let me make a video, and then we'll make a better video. But that's kind of what I'm talking about, right in front of us. So do the next right thing. She even says, like, the next right thing could be something incredibly small, like if you paint, washing out your paintbrushes, stopping by the art supply store and getting more clay, checking the local paper for art classes or acting classes. As a rule of thumb, it is best to just admit that there's always one action you can take for your creativity daily. This daily action commits to filling the form. So that was kind of the last section. But before that, she talks about age and how people have these excuses like, I'm too old, or I don't have money for it. I don't have the time. I'll do it when I'm retired. I should have done it when I was 20, whatever. And that's just the ego. That's just being way too subscribed to like what the framework of society and the world that we live in is. And you gotta just be yourself and live in the present moment. And I'm so glad she mentions the present moment here. Like this, what I'm about to say is the kind of stuff that I was learning out in other books, and I read it here and I was like, yeah, you go, Julia, you go, Miss Cameron. But creativity occurs in the moment, and in the moment we are timeless. So, saying that you're too old or you don't have money, these are things that the inner child would never think about when they're creating or when they're being. And so that's what you're trying to channel. So why are you thinking about these things? Kids are not self-conscious, and once we are actually in the flow of our creativity, neither are we. So when you're really pen to paper, voice to microphone, paintbrush to canvas, camera's recording, like when you're really doing it and you're locked in, you are not thinking about how old you are, any of that worldly ego stuff. Like, you just don't think about that. And so if you're really doing it, why would that ever be a restriction? And I think this book is kind of limited, made for people who are maybe not realizing their limitations and trying to outline them so that we can scrap them. But yeah, that's such a big thing. And personally, like, now that I'm older, not only do I feel more confident in my like musical making abilities and just my abilities creatively in general. But I also feel like more confident in myself and have like a clarity around what I'm making, and not like, oh, I want to be exactly like this, but I mean through books like this and um, and just being curious about creativity in general, I'm operating with the clarity of like what's actually going on, like what I'm saying. Like I recognize now that I need to be in the present moment. I need to achieve flow, and those things come. I don't like the word need in that situation because it's like that creates some kind of force, but it's not something you force. But I digress. Yeah, I mean, I just have more creative hunger too. Like, you know, 25 minutes deep in this week 8 artist way, like I'll say this, like I thought I was gonna have all of this figured out like off song 1. You know what I mean? I thought I was gonna put my first song out and it was gonna get picked up on Spotify playlists and people were gonna start reaching out to me and it was gonna be like boom, just and there was momentum for sure. People were excited and still are, and it's great that it's like it's still building in its own way. But that's kind of my point. Like I thought it was just gonna go, and now it's just like oof, But like I'm not doing it for the output. I'm doing it for the process, and that's something else that she says here. Let me get it off right, but art is a process, not a product. Um, it creates a fixation on finished, where you're trying to pin it down into like one singular output, like this song or this album or this picture, and it's like that's not it, because you are a creative being and you have the rest of your creativity and the rest of your life. And that's kind of what I mean, is like you're getting fixated on the product, so then you're like tying your ego to it and all this, and it's like creating a block because you're tied to this one thing and you're not allowing your creativity to flow in all directions. So let me read what she's saying. Hopefully it'll create more clarity. But the idea that art produces a finished product comes from our consumer-oriented society. This focus creates a great deal of creative block. We, as working artists, may want to explore a new artistic area, but we don't see where it will get us. We wonder if it will be good for our career. Fixated on the need to have something to show for our labors, we often deny our curiosities. Every time we do this, we are blocked. So that's what I mean. Like, let it go in all directions. Art is a process. It's literally just about like being in flow and getting it off. And it's not about creating a finished product. And back then, like when I first started making music, I feel like I was in flow so much more because I didn't think about, artistic brand image or any of this stuff. And don't get me wrong, like I love all that stuff and I love playing with it and learning new things and like expressing myself in that way too. Like it's very much that, but it's more commercially and consumer oriented. And so that's something that needs to be worked through in itself. But point being is like when I was just some sweaty college kid, like learning how to make beats and sampling random stuff, and me and my friends would jam for like 4 hours, and I would just have the camera, like my voice memos or my microphone just recording the room, and I'd be like, oh, there's all these song ideas in here and stuff, and I would just make like random loops just to like mess with plugins and add weird textures, but I would never make a song out of it. And I was learning constantly. I was always watching YouTube tutorials and stuff. And I guess my point being is like those are the times where I was just in the process and I didn't think about any product because I was making beats and trying to sell them, but I feel like that was only happening like when they were really good and I was done with working them. You know what I mean? Like if I feel like I was tired of working on them and they were actually like a full length, like 2 to 3 minutes, then I'd be like, all right, let me export this and put it out. And so I feel like I was way more in the process. And so, it's timeless. Just be in the moment and just go for it. I think that's where I'm going to leave you. It's all ego other than that. Like, this is my last point. Before we hit the 30-minute mark. Wrote, all your blockage is ego. It's all these ideas you have about yourself coming from the outside or from within that you've internalized. Creativity most often does not come from the ego, it comes from source. When I say source, that means whatever that means to you, spirit, whatever, the universe. That's how I think about it. Your ego is what keeps you alive, keeps you wanting to go out and get food and put clothes on your back and be successful in whatever. Like that's your ego running things, your mind. But the source, that spirit, that's where the creativity's coming from. And yeah, you need to tap into that and give yourself the grace and the protection from the ego so that that creativity, that inner child can flow. But yeah, I think that's what I'm gonna leave you on week 8 here. I got some activities to do at the end. I feel like I might have done these like a month ago, but I'm gonna go back and do them. There's so many activities in this book, and like there's so much going on in my life, but I want to continue even if I don't get the activities done. You know, don't come for me, Julia Cameron. I still love you, and I value the book, but I also want to get through this and make my YouTube series and finish it. But yeah, thank you for watching, guys. I really do appreciate it, like more than you guys know. I got so much music coming, and part of getting back to this was just to get back in the swing of things. But yeah, I wish nothing but the best for you. If you've seen this around Christmas, happy holidays, and yeah, I just wish you the best, man. Like, if any of y'all made it this far and you need any help creatively, you want to just like talk to someone about this stuff, I'm so down. You know, I would love to hear your thoughts. I'm tired of hearing myself think. Like, for real, I'd love to hear your thoughts. So hit me up. But that's where I'll leave you. Peace.